Good afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to show my face really quickly and say hello. I guess it could be good morning, depending on what time zone you're in. My name is Audrey Butlett-Swenson, and I am the Liaison Librarian to the College of Management Technology. My face might be familiar if you have seen me at residency, or if you've been to another one of my webinars, or if you've been on one of our subject pages in the library. So today we're going to talk about researching theory for business and IT. There's a lot of overlap. The concept is very, very similar. Many of the examples I'll do will be focused on business, but just know that they would be applicable to IT as well. If there's something that you would like me to repeat or slow down, or you want me to clarify something, please do put that in the questions box. I'd be happy to try and get to it while we're doing the webinar. If it's something a little bit more in depth or a little off topic, I might just follow up with you after the webinar. Using whatever email address you used to register for the webinar. Today's webinar will be recorded, and anybody who registered, whether you are attending or if you were unable to show up, will get a link to the recording. So, and in the future, if you are unable to attend, please know that you're more than welcome to just sign up. We completely expect that. We know you guys have really busy schedules and aren't able to make all the times that we set up. So just wanted to show my face, show you that I'm a real person. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off. And I'm just gonna pop in and make sure that I don't see any questions yet. Looking good. Okay, awesome. All right, so what's today's agenda? We're gonna talk about library resources, specific to business and IT, but I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. It's just, we're gonna use them as an example of where to go to search for theory or theories that are relevant to your topic. We're going to do some search examples. I think I'm going to do one in one of our databases and another in Google Scholar. We'll look at searching for theory and dissertations because that's another really great place to get some context for theory or concept, depending on what you're actually researching. And then using our encyclopedias to search for information too, because, theory isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it's really hard to tell, how it's evolved over time, who the seminal author might be, and encyclopedia entries are a really great resource for that. So just like I said earlier, if anybody needs me to slow down or repeat something or needs me to clarify something, please do put that in the questions box. I am happy to follow along with that and provide as many answers as I can as I go along. So today we're actually going to go into the Walden Library. You'll see that I have my Google Scholar tab open as well. But just know that I'm not going to go into every single resource that we have in here. I just want to show you that you can contact us. So if you are researching theory and you need help, there's a couple of different options for you. If you click on Ask a Librarian, you can email us, you can chat with us, or if you want to talk with me one-on-one, you are more than welcome to do that. You'll just come in here and select the college and then continue on. I'm not going to go into it, but my calendar will pop up and you can select a day and time. If you don't see a day and time that work for you, just know that you can email me directly. That's okay. I know everybody has different work schedules and personal time conflicts. So, every once in a while a student will contact me and say, hey, can you do it a little later? And I do my best to be as flexible with you guys as possible because I want you guys to get the help that you need. Okay? All right, so that's how you can contact the library. The next thing I want to point out is our business and management section. And know that if you're in IT, we have a technology and applied sciences section. Both of these are going to be relevant for what we're doing today. And if you're researching a topic that falls out of, doesn't necessarily pertain to just those two categories, you can certainly spend time in health sciences, human services. It doesn't just have to be business and management. So business and management, there's a picture of me, what I look like when I'm not being quarantined, right? Okay, so this is the business and management homepage. But what I'm actually going to do is there's going to be two things that we're focusing on in here. One is the business and management databases, and the next one is the theories and theories section. So I'm going to run a search in one of our business databases just to show you how this kind of works. I think one of the things that is generally confusing for students is, well, how do I get a perfect list of theories that are relevant for me based on whatever topic I'm researching? And I wish there was a database that could provide you with an exact list for every single topic that's out there. Unfortunately, that just doesn't exist. So there's some lists out there that have general, business specific theories, psychology theories. But the easiest way to develop or find those theories is to look through the literature on your topic. So I'll show you what I'm talking about in a moment. But first, we're going to go down to this theories and theorists section. There's a little bit of content in here. We have a general theories and theorists guide that's actually getting updated. So that'll change soon. And then there's just some information here about, searching for articles on your topic, things that are going to be covered today in this webinar. But the one thing that I do want to point out is this business and theories and theorists guide. This is something I created because there were so many questions about researching business theory. And this kind of gives you an overview of what we'll be discussing today. And then as far as the follow-up, and if anybody joined a little bit later, just know a recording of this webinar will be sent out in the next 24 hours. And then as part of that follow-up, I will put a link to this guide in the follow-up, so you don't have to try and figure out where I found it. It'll be linked in that email and you can go right back to it, or you can rewatch the webinar and figure out what I clicked on. So either way is fine. So some of the things that we'll be talking about today is searching Google Scholar, searching our databases, reviewing completed doctoral studies for theories. All that information is actually here. And I think one of the trickiest things that sometimes comes up is looking for the seminal author or the seminal theorist. Some are easier than others. You'll see I have Herzberg here. That's very, very obvious. Searching for that content is, pretty easy. And there's just some theories that, they might be brand new. They might have changed names. They might have expanded. There could be all sorts of stuff going on with them. So it's not always a straight line. And I always point that out because even when I'm helping students in appointments, I have to sit there sometimes and, after the appointment's done, I have to spend time in the databases using Google Scholar to kind of sift through it to get, a more linear understanding of the theory and who the original theorist was. So, and then the other thing I have on here, we'll talk about this, is looking for the earliest mention of a theory in Google Scholar. Searching Google Scholar for a specific theory is really helpful because you're getting that broad picture for it. And we'll come to that too. Just because the databases, they kind of give you a piecemeal view of a theory. It doesn't really give you, again, the linear timeline of the theory. And you'll find plenty of articles discussing a theory or using a theory, but it's just a little bit harder to get that broad picture. We'll talk about using the library's encyclopedias and handbooks. Again, we'll come back to that. But I just want to show you what's in here because it is a lot of what we'll be talking about today. I also have, it's just an Excel spreadsheet. Don't feel like you have to use it. I just thought it might be handy for you. If you've already attended residency, you might have the literature review matrix already set up and you might be putting your theories in there. Basically, this is just an Excel spreadsheet you can use if you want to that helps you keep track of the theories that you found in the different articles that you've grabbed. It just is a little bit more specific, but just know you don't have to do it. It's just there for your reference if you'd like to use it. And of course, we'll be updating the recording of this webinar and putting it here. So I'm going to pop out of here and head back to that research homepage. And then for anybody who might have showed up a little bit late, if you have any questions or you need me to repeat something or clarify something, that's totally fine. Just put it in the questions box and I'll do my best to get to it while I'm presenting. So let's start off with a sample search. So I'm going to use Business Source Complete. And every once in a while I'll have a student asking me about why do you pick that one? Is that the best database? My answer to this for demoing is I think it has the clearest interface. So when I'm showing it to you guys, I think it's the easiest one to follow along with and easiest to review. So I think all these databases have great content and you could run very similar searches in them. But for demoing, Business Source Complete is probably the easiest. Okay, so you could start with a really broad topic. My go-to for any demoing is usually employee turnover. So let's go ahead and play with that really quickly. So let's go ahead and make sure that we check mark peer reviewed. Um, Normally I would have you uncheck full text, which you certainly still could. Well, let's go ahead and do it. I just want to show you why you might not want to do that right away if you're looking for theory, just because you'll want to find articles that are in full text so you can start collecting that information faster. But it's up to you how you want to do it. So unchecking full text is going to show you everything that's in the databases, even if we don't have a subscription to it. So you might be able to find articles that are in another database and it'll pop you out. So I'm going to go ahead and run this search. All right. So we've got 7,700 articles on employee or labor turnover, and that's quite a bit to sift through. So if we wanted to make this a little bit more narrow, we could narrow it down. And I'm just updating the time frame here. There we go. And now we're down to 1,600. All right, so what you could do if you wanted to do it this way was if you had a third topic and you wanted to narrow this down, you certainly could. But what you would do is you would come in, find articles that are relevant to you. And then let's go ahead and open up this one. And then the easiest way to do this is if if you're able to, you can do a browser search, or if it's a PDF, you can do a PDF search for a word. Honestly, most of the time the theory is going to be in the introduction section. Yeah, they have some of the theories listed here. They might have a separate section that talks about their research methods that has a little blurb about their theory. But you can search through it too, just to make it go a little bit faster. Looks like they're using context emergent turnover theory and capacity theory. So if we wanted to learn a little bit more about that, I'm sure they're discussing it further down, and you could get some more context and add that to your list of theories that are being used related to your topic. The other thing that comes up, if you're DBA, I think pretty often, I haven't heard this request from DIT or PhD management quite as much, but a lot of times you're going to be as part of the rubric, you're asked for, not competing or it's not conflicting, but opposing theories. So while you're looking through the literature, oftentimes the authors will be talking about what they're using and what they're not going to use and why. So that's something to keep an eye out for, opposing theory as well. Okay, so 1,600 is still quite a bit to go through. So the next thing we can do, and I'm actually going to get rid of this date range because I did a pre-done search beforehand and I want to make sure I get all the things that I was looking for. Again, this is it's not always linear, which is why, oops, we'll just say 1915. So I want to make sure I get all the articles that I had for my previous example so we can go step by step through this. Okay, so you can also put in theory as one of your search terms. And that'll help you find articles that are actually discussing that term. They might be talking about it in the title. It might be a subject term. It might be in the author supplied abstract. And I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and run a search for that. Great. So let's find one that there's theory in the subject term. If it's a more popular theory, a lot of times you'll see them as an index term in the databases. And I actually found one that was improperly indexed, but just know you can click into them and take a look. Sometimes that theory is something that's, so the author supplied keywords. So these aren't actually database terms that they've indexed. This is a term that the author had used, probably because they figured somebody would be looking for that particular theory or noting that they've used that theory in their research. So sometimes you'll see the theory as a subject term or a keyword, or it might be posted in their abstract. The tricky thing about researching theory in the articles themselves is that not all of the authors are going to discuss their theories in the abstract. So you might be missing some of them by adding theory. And of course, you could expand this by saying framework, or model, however you want to do it. Just for this demo, I'm just going to do theory, just again, so we can do step by step. But just know you can expand this depending on what you're researching and what you're going to use. So if you haven't attended my previous webinars or any other webinars in the library talking about search skills, the OR is going to look for either one of these terms. So right now it's looking for employee and turnover and theory, and employee and turnover and framework. So it's running multiple searches at the same time if I click search. So just wanted to give you an overview of what's going on and why I did that search that way. Let's rerun that search. And I'm going to actually do, I'm going to change this to SU subject terms. And what that's going to do is it's going to look for theory as a term related to the terms that are indexed by the databases. So these subject terms. So I'm going to hit search. Great. And so you'll see them pop up. So embeddedness, socioeconomic theory, that comes up a couple times. Control theory, economic theory this time, socioeconomic theory again. Great. So sometimes, and actually this is the article I was talking about, this one has been tagged with agency theory. And I actually went in here and I didn't see agency theory discussed, but they have a different theory that we'll actually use as an example. But the more popular ones will tend to be indexed, like anything that had to do with Herzberg's or Maslov, or a lot of the more popular psychological theories tend to be in there too. So let's go ahead and open this up. So, oh, actually, I wanted to open the actual article. There we go. So, in their introduction here, you'll actually see that they are talking about the conservation of resource theory. And I'm actually going to just pull that aside. You'll notice that I had a little cheat sheet here because it's hard to keep track of everything that I've gone through, and I make sure we're on the same page when we're going through this content. So, if you went through their content, you're going to get more information about this particular theory. They have their citations in here. Hopefully they're giving you context for why they're using that theory, how they're using it, and who the seminal authors would be. Looks like they've got a couple of citations. So if we scroll down, oh, we might have to dig for it a little bit. Let's see, they had 40, right? We'll have to come back to that. But you should be able to come into their references, pull who the seminal author is, or any supporting authors, or any articles that might be of interest to you that are related to that theory and maybe a research topic. So that's something that's helpful in the databases looking for articles. Again, it's not always a perfect straight line. You know, sometimes authors don't always talk about the seminal work. And that's when I suggest going over to our encyclopedias, because you're going to get more context there. They're going to give you most of the time the start to finish kind of information. So if you're feeling stuck looking through the articles themselves, especially for more context on that theory, encyclopedias are great. And I'll show you how to get to them. So we will go ahead and do that. So we're going to go to the library homepage. And I'll give you guys just a moment to catch up. And we're actually going to search for this particular theory in Google Scholar as well. But we'll start with the encyclopedias. So from the home page, you'll see a button that says Publications. Go and click on that. And then on the bottom of the list on the left-hand side, you'll see encyclopedias, handbooks, and dictionaries. Click on that. And then we have a few resources here. Gale Virtual Reference Library is going to be really great for business-specific concepts. It's a really great resource. But for this, I'm going to suggest you use Sage Knowledge, and that's what we're going to use as a demo. For further down the road, or if you want more information about research methodology, Sage Research Methods Online is awesome. And I could do probably a 3-hour webinar on that database. So totally unrelated to theory, but I do like to plug it when I have a chance. But again, today we're using Sage Knowledge. So I'm going to go ahead and search for that theory that I found, because I'm like, I don't know, I want more information about that theory, get a little bit more context for it, maybe get some references from it as well, or for it. Great. So you'll see that our theory popped up as the first result. Not every theory is going to be in Sage Knowledge. Usually it's the more popular theories, things that have been around for a while, things that tend to be cited more often. So don't despair if you don't find it in Sage Knowledge. Again, reach out to the library or make an appointment with me and we can kind of work through, more context for whatever theory you're researching and try and get you more help with that if you need it. But a lot of them are in here. So let's go ahead and click on that title. So it gives you, a little bit of time frame, early research with this particular theory, and then some citations here. So it can give you context, which is great. And then, because I'm not totally familiar with this theory, it looks like this particular author is probably the seminal theorist. I'm not going to say for sure because I didn't read this whole thing, but just know that it should give you that kind of context and those references. If you want to read some of the seminal works, the older it is, the harder it might be to get in full text. Some of these we might have in full text, some of them we might not. If you really, really want one of them and we don't have it in full text or you can't find it, do email us and we'll try and help you find the full text for free. If we can't get the full text of an article for you, let's go ahead and go back to the library here. You'll want to go to services and then document delivery service. So if anybody's used interlibrary loan, document delivery service is very similar, except everything's electronic. The reason I say email us first is a lot of times we're able to find the full text, and document delivery service has a 30 article per lifetime limit, and that actually includes book chapters. So we can get you a book chapter if you need one. Unfortunately, because of copyright law, we can't get you the entire book. I wish we could, but we can't. The other thing that might be an option is if you live closer to maybe a state university or a large university, usually public academic libraries have public patron policies, so you might be able to find a work on their shelves, and you may or may not be able to check it out, but you should be able to go there and see it in person. So, and again, we'll give you instruction for that if you email us. Okay. So let me just make sure there aren't any questions about the encyclopedias. Any questions about the databases before I move on? Okay. I know it's a lot to absorb in 1 hour. But like I said, don't be shy about following up via email, or my email is attached to this webinar, so you can email me directly if you'd like to. Again, make an appointment if you want to work with me one-on-one. I should still have some hours open for April. So, okay. So the next thing I want to do is we're going to head back to the main page of the library, and we're going to look at dissertations. So that's another great place to search for theory. So if you want to go see what somebody, did with a similar research topic, you could go and see what theory they used. Or if you wanted to search by a particular theory in the dissertations databases, you can do that too. So you can kind of work back and forth. So from the library homepage, if you click on publications, again, dissertations and theses will be on the left-hand side. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that. You'll notice that we have 3 different resources linked here. ScholarWorks is a open, like a public accessible repository for Walden dissertations and Walden journal articles. Articles published by the Walden specific journals. So you don't need to worry about that so much, but the dissertations and theses at Walden University and the Global Dissertations Database will be very, very helpful for you. I usually suggest, so if a student has made an appointment with me, I usually suggest they look at Walden specific dissertations first. That way you can look at somebody who's completed a document related to your rubric specifically. And, it might have changed over time. You can change the date range. And then if you want to go into the global dissertations database, it has over 3 million documents in there, and you can, search by your topic and figure out, well, what's the spread? What kind of theories or concepts or frameworks have people used, and what might work for me? Now, if you have questions about which theory is going to work best for your research? That is a great question for your chair if you have one. If you haven't been assigned one yet, then I would suggest reaching out to a faculty member that you're working with in a course, and they can give you some clarification for that. Unfortunately, the library, we're not going to tell you one way or the other because we're not the gatekeepers. Your chair and your committee are going to be those gatekeepers, and they're going to give you the final word on what theory is appropriate or not. So that's why I always point that out while we're going through here. So let's go ahead and open up the Walden Dissertations database. So let's go ahead and search for that theory again. And let's narrow a date range to the last 5 years. That way it's, newer rubrics, might still have to limit it a little bit further, but we'll just see what we can get. All right, so we've got 50 results. So our original search was for turnover. So we could add that in here if we wanted to and narrow it down even further and just say turnover, if I could spell it right. Hard to do when you're on the spot, right? Okay, so put in turnover, and that narrows it down to 34. Now, if you wanted to narrow this down by degree, you certainly could, or if you just want to come in here and just get an understanding of how they used it, you can certainly do that too. If anybody wants me to search by degree type, I can certainly do that. Just put that in the questions box and I can do it. But if you open up the dissertations, I'll just click on the full text here. They'll always tell you what degree they're going for or what they completed. So this looks like it's definitely DBA. So if you're DBA, let's scroll through and hopefully I'm not making you too dizzy. You'll have a section for your theoretical framework. And then if you scroll down here, you'll have a little bit of information here under your review of professional academic literature. So your theoretical framework information is there. So just know if your PhD management or DIT, your table of contents will be listed very, very similarly. PhD management, I think your entire lit review is in chapter 2, if I'm remembering that correctly. But the concept's the same. You're going to have a section broken apart for your theories with information about them. So you could come in here, figure out, go to their theoretical framework section and dig through it. And the nice thing about this is they probably have done a lot of the legwork for you. They're gonna, if this is pertaining to a topic that you're researching, obviously not the exact same one. Here they are talking about the theory we searched for, that author we found in the encyclopedia. So we knew we were on the right track. And then it looks like they're moving on to other articles that discuss that theory. And then if you go down to their references section, I'll just do it real fast so nobody gets motion sickness. Oh my goodness, not doing it fast enough. This is a long one. Okay, you can look in their references and go to their section. We'll go back to the H section where we had the author, the theorist. Oh my goodness, this is a long one. All right. So we've got Hobfell in there at least 4 times, maybe 6. Actually, they're talking about Herzberg. Another plug for Herzberg. So just know you can come in and look at their references too. But it's nice because, again, you get that context for what did they use and why did they use it, how did they use it. So looking at dissertations can save you some time. Again, I wish there was a perfect list that would tell you exactly which theory to use based off your research topic. I have yet to find that. If anybody finds that, please do email it to me. I would love to see it. So that's how you could search for, the actual theory and how it's being used. If you just wanted to come in here and look for turnover, just see who has, researched employee turnover in the last few years. Just double checking that there aren't any questions yet. Doesn't look like there are. Oh, okay. Oh, good. Yeah, that's a really good question. So the question is, how do you search by author? And then how do you search for references that are older than 5 years? And yeah, we'll definitely go over that in Google Scholar. Like I said, Google Scholar is a lot easier to do that kind of research just because, again, there's more content. So I will keep this open and come back to that, make sure I answered each part of your question. Because it can it's easy to get lost because there's not a person in front of me. So, all right, so we did employee turnover. Now we have 612. You could change this date range if you wanted to, just the newest of the new, just to see, okay, these people probably use the newest rubric. And you could come in here, look through it, and then kind of get an idea of what the more popular theories are, or, you know, something that might be pertinent to you. You could add more search terms in here to narrow it down because we do have 168. I mean, that's pretty decent. So feel free to alter your search if you need to. But searching through the dissertations is very, very helpful. Again, let's just close this out. If we went into the global dissertations database, great, and search for that theory. And actually, I'm going to show you guys something that you'll need to do while you're in here. So the global dissertations database actually has master's theses in it too. So you're going to make sure you click on doctoral dissertations to narrow it. I'm going to go ahead and do that and rerun my search. There we go. So I think we had, what, 50? We narrow the date range here, update. We have 213. So if you wanted to get more context for that theory about how it's being used in a broader sense, the Global Dissertations database is very, very helpful. And actually, yeah, I'll come back to that. So any questions? If there's any other questions about dissertations, I will hop into Google Scholar and I will give you guys some context, especially answering that question about how do you search by author. So actually, I want to grab his name. Was it Hobfell? There, I'm going to keep that up. So if we wanted to, I'm just going to start with the theory and then I'll go over to the author and I'll show you how I would do that. So if you wanted to come in here and search by theory, you could certainly do that. Just on this particular theory, we've got about 10,000 results. And that's why I was saying Google Scholar is going to give you that bigger picture of how many articles have actually used that theory over time. Because if we ran this in one of our databases, we might get a few hundred, but it's not going to give you that big picture, which I think is really, really helpful for theory. So the next thing you could do is you could start to narrow this down by date. I think I saw that his articles were published in the 80s, so we'll start with like 1990. So what I've done is I've clicked on custom range, and what I'm going to do is leave that first box blank, and in the second search box I've typed in 1990, and what that does is it's going to look for any entries or any resources published or discussing this theory up until 1990. So anything newer than 1990 is going to be omitted. So great. And you'll actually see our authors here too. So that's very, very helpful. We know we're on the right track. The dates are going to be published there. I'm not sure why we have one in Italian. That's one of the cons of Google Scholar. There are some mystery entries in here. They like to keep me on my toes. Okay, so we've got 2 entries by Hobfell. And if we wanted to run a search with his name or her name, I don't know if it's a male or female or somebody else, but you could run a search by author. The other thing that you can do, so you'll see that this author's name is underlined. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And what that's going to do is it's going to show you, oh, let's see, this person's profile page. So it's going to show you everything they've published along with how many times it's been cited and the year. So this looks like a very popular article, 1989. It's been cited 10,000 times. I bet this is probably one of the seminal works, if not the seminal work. But if you wanted to look for something, that's a little newer, you could see, has he published anything along that lines, in the last year or two, or if you wanted to scroll down to your 5-year date range, you could certainly do that too. So some of the more popular, more recent authors do have a Google profile page. Not everybody's going to have one. Some of those older authors who are unfortunately no longer with us probably do not have one. But if you're fortunate to find an author who does have have a profile page, you can click on it and look that way. Let me just need to move something out of the way. So I click out of this. The next thing you could do, so we've kind of gone back in time. We looked up by author, the articles we were looking for from 1989. I'm not seeing them pop up and I'm not entirely sure why. So the next thing we could do is search by the author name, as what we were discussing as far as a question here. So if we do author S.E. Hobfall, and actually let's get rid of our date range. I might have to copy this because it might clear it out. Yeah, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, so whoops, we're going to put in author colon and then whatever their name is. I tend to put in quotation marks, especially if there's a space. And what that does is it's going to search that exact phrase. Don't break it apart, don't put it in a different order. And since we know that this is their preferred, how this is their name is displayed, that's how we're going to search. So let's go ahead and search. We have 528 articles. Again, we could start by custom range here and say, you said the older than last 5 years. So if we wanted to say 2016, see everything that's before 2016, we could add that in there. And now we're down to 429. And you could keep working backwards in time to, oops, year 200. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay. Year 2000, we've got 215. You can keep working backwards as you'd like. Looks, I think this is probably the Seminole War. We'd have to go back and double check. I think we were looking at 1989. But yeah, that's how you can search by author in Google Scholar. You could certainly do the same thing in the databases, and I will show you how to do that. Hopefully this hasn't timed out on me. So we're gonna say SE Hubful. Click on this drop down and you'll see that we have an option for AU author. And we might have to change this to Hobful, SE, but we'll see what we can get away with. Yeah, it didn't like that. Sometimes it can be really picky. It might not even like the SE. Nope. Okay, so let's just try S. Really? Oh, probably doesn't like my date range stuff here either. Or maybe we just don't have anything by him in the databases. Oh, we do. Okay, they're going by Stephen E. So that's something good to keep an eye on. So if you have an author whose last name is Smith, you'll probably have to figure out, how to redo your search here to make sure that you can find what you're looking for. But just know that that's one way to do it. You'd alter it if I wanted to make this specific and say Stephen. That should narrow it down a little bit, maybe. The last two. So that's good. Maybe there's more than one Hobful. Who knows? So that's how you can search in the databases for it by author if you want to. You can do the same thing in Google Scholar. Yeah, okay. So the next question was, how can you search for more than one author at a time? I'm assuming to see if they've published an article together more than once. So I'm going to borrow, who should I borrow here? Let's borrow R.S. Lilly. So if you wanted to see if these two have published more than one article together, you would just say author S.E. Hobful and author R.S. Lilly and run the search. And you'll see that they've done two different publications together. If we took off the date range, there's 3. That's actually probably, I don't know why there's a second citation. That always drives me crazy, Google Scholar. But again, there's pros and cons about using Google Scholar. If you're new to using Google Scholar, please do put that in the questions box. I'd be happy to do some clarification about using it. If you're not, we do have some time, so I'm happy to go through and show you, a little bit more advanced searching in Google Scholar, linking Google Scholar to the Walden Library. I'm happy to go through that with you. So I think, we'll go ahead and do that. While you're looking in Google Scholar, once you find those articles that are, very, very popular. So, you know, more than likely, this is probably the seminal work. We looked at his profile page and it had been cited about 10,000 times. So when you're looking through Google Scholar, when you see this cited by and that number is getting pretty big, you know, you have a very important document. So just keep an eye on that. Let me just make sure. Oh, okay, excellent. All right, so I have a student that said that they're new to Google Scholar, so I will go ahead and walk through a couple things. So you'll notice in my search results, I have a Find It Walden link to the right-hand side. That means I've connected Google Scholar to the Walden Library. So you can actually access these articles through our collections. If you see PDF or HTML, those are open source and freely available on the web. They're open to anybody. Anybody can access them. I can't speak to their legality, may or may not be legally posted on there, but they're not something that's provided by the Walden Library. So to get this Find a Walden, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to connect it manually. And you're going to do that by going up to the left-hand corner next to Google Scholar. There'll be a 3 horizontal bar logo. And you're going to click on that. And I'm just going to take my time because I forget how fast I click, and everybody usually is just, especially when I'm at residency, I can see that I'm going too fast, and it's hard with this because I can't see if you're looking at me like you just went 2 steps too fast. So I'll go kind of slow. Take a sip of water, take my time. So at the bottom of that list, you should see settings. If settings isn't at the bottom, you're going to see this little, looks like a little daisy or sprocket if you ever watched the Jetsons, to the right of Google Scholar, and you'll click on that. But from here, if you see settings, click on it. And then we're going to click on library links. And in that search bar, we're going to type in Walden University. And then hit search. And actually, you don't even have to type in university. It'll find it without it. So if you just want to type in Walden, that'd be fine. So once you've done that, you'll see Walden University Find It Walden listed. And you'll see Open WorldCat if you're in the United States. If you're outside the US, you may or may not see it. I don't know what their preferences, I don't know what Google Scholar preferences is. Outside the United States, I was working with a student who was in Canada and they did not have that link. So just know if you see a different resource here, just leave it. They're just trying to help you find more content. Make sure that these are both checkmarked and then hit save. And let me just make sure there weren't any questions about that. If anybody wants me to repeat that, please do put it in the questions box and I'll walk through it one more time. So if you click on the Find a Walden, what it'll do is it'll take you to an intermediary page. Sometimes there'll be numerous databases. You might even have like 10 of them. All that you really care about is that the database listed is going to tell you what kind of collection access they have. And they're actually looking at the journal title, not the actual article itself. So Psych Articles has access to American Psychologist from 1946 to present. And our article is from 1989, so there's no problems there. All we have to do is click on the article, or sorry, on the database. And then here's our full text. So Google Scholar is really great that way. You know, because some of those articles might not be, some of the articles that you're looking for might not be in the business databases. They might, again, be in the psychology databases. They might be in education. They might be in the IT databases, depending on what you're looking at, what theory it is. So Google Scholar is really helpful in that respect, is that it's going to help you find more content and help you find more full text. And that's, I think, really tricky with theory, I think, because it's, you know, it's like I said earlier, it's not always a straight line. And when you're in the databases, you're only getting different pieces of that line. And Google Scholar is really good for kind of straightening that out and giving you a larger view of how to research theory. So I think we've covered about everything. Let me just go back to my list here. I think we've got it. I'll just leave the last 15 minutes for questions if anybody has them. Oh, I didn't actually open up my questions box. Whoops. I'll leave the last 15 minutes for questions. If nobody has any, I'll let you guys go back to work or go back to what you were doing. I really appreciate you being here. yeah, you're more than welcome to sign up for any upcoming webinars if you'd like to. And once this webinar is done, if anybody showed up while I wasn't discussing this earlier, a recording of the webinar will be sent out in the next 24 hours. It will include a link to that theory guide that has all the instruction that we kind of went over today and demoed. And there will be a survey after the webinar is completed. Feel free to give positive or critical feedback. I'm happy to take both. I want to be better next time. So I don't see any questions popping in. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and stay safe and healthy. Thanks, guys.